Hello there. Welcome to the Kidmin Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Conley. Welcome to episode 6. And I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today because we're going to talk about something that nobody ever talks about in kids ministry. And we're going to talk about it because I think it's actually really important. And although it might be one of those conversations that people don't talk about, it has the potential to shift your ministry, to give you energy and excitement. So we're going to dive into that in just a minute. Hey, we've been promoting. We are getting ready to launch our 2026 coaching cohorts as part of Ministry Boost. We are about 1 week away from launching, and we would love to have you participate. So if you have not signed up yet and you're looking for an intentional way to develop yourself as a kids ministry leader, or maybe this is for your co-student pastor or your family ministry director, we have intentional cohorts that will develop you and take your ministry to the next level with your skills, with your leadership, with thought ideas. We're doing some really amazing things this year in our cohort. We've made it more affordable than ever. And as part of coaching, get access to everything that Ministry Boost has to offer. So if you haven't signed up, do it today before it's too late. We'd love to have you in one of our 2026 coaching cohorts. Okay, so let's dive into today's episode. We're going to talk about that thing that nobody does. Okay, this deals with volunteers. Okay, now a certain aspect of volunteers. In volunteer recruiting, we love volunteer recruiting. And too many times we turn the volunteer ask into a singular outcome. Will you serve on our team? Yes or no. And more often than not, they're going to say no. And when they say no, because again, it's a numbers thing. It's like, is it one yes for every 9 no's or one yes for every 5 no's? I don't know what it is for. Depends on the situation. Statistically, more people are going to say no than they are yes, which is what makes volunteer recruiting so hard. It's still worth it though. But too many times we turn it into a binary ask, yes or no. People say no, and we treat it like a loss. Sometimes we take it personally. But a no to weekly or bi-weekly serving could actually still be a yes to something else. And that something else is where healthy ministries might call subs. Okay? Don't take the L with a no, but turn it into a different yes. For some people are, conflict avoidant. They don't want to say no, but they're going to be strong enough to say, my schedule's really busy. I just don't see how we can do that. Or I don't know that I want to do that. And if you were to change the response to the no of, okay, well, thank you very much, but instead say, well, let me pitch another idea to you. We do need volunteers who show up every week and invest in the lives of kids. But even those volunteers sometimes get sick or they're out of town. And we're building a team of people who serve on occasion, and they step in from time to time to help sub for our amazing volunteers. Is that something you might be open to? Like, I know you can't do this with your schedule right now. Would you be willing to sub in from time to time? Would that be something you'd be open to? Could we have more conversation? You'll be amazed at how many people will say yes to that. Here's what I want to talk about. I call this building the bench, and this is why subs matter more than we admit. Too many times our sub strategy is a reaction. It's reactive. It's not intentional. And I think that we need to give our sub strategy far more intention than we usually do. Here's what I know is true. Every healthy ministry has a deep bench. Okay? I'm not a sports guy. Nick Blevins makes fun of me all the time whenever I use sports analogies. But I know whether it's a football team or a soccer team or whatever it may be, if you need a certain number of players on the field and you only have that number of players, when one of your players gets sick or injured, you're going to lose the game. The secret to a healthy team is having a deep bench of great subs. Okay? Your ministry is no different. Because here's the deal. We want committed volunteers. We want volunteers who are going to show up all the time, but no volunteer is going to be there 100% of the time. You're not even going to be there 100% of the time. Seasons change. Even your best volunteers, their work gets busy for a season. They get pregnant. They have a baby. They go through a family crisis. They travel. They need time off. And so in ministry, we need to also play the long game too. Like we need to know that even my best volunteers are going to be out for. I see a vision of where my volunteers might possibly serve for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And I need to be ready that when they come and say, hey, I need some time off. Sure thing. No problem. Why don't you take the summer off? Like we got you. Why don't you take the summer off, catch your breath, and then we'll kick back in the fall. Why don't you, you know what? You've got a lot going on with your family right now. Why don't you take the semester off and then let's check back in a couple months and bring you back next semester. You know, for your lifers, for your volunteers that love it, that's going to breathe the life because sometimes they might feel trapped. They might feel like, well, I can't stop doing it. I don't want to let them down. So if we're going to have that type of ministry, we're playing the long game. We need to have a strong sub strategy. You see, subs aren't uncommitted volunteers. They're committed people in a different season. Maybe this is the most they can do right now. Okay. You know, so we talk about volunteer recruiting all the time. In a recent episode, we talked about, filling the roster, identifying, clarifying the need. How many leaders do I need? How many volunteers do I need? How many do I currently have? How many do I need to recruit to fill that up? Here's the funny thing that happens. The full roster sometimes is an illusion. You fill every single spot. I remember when I was in Arizona, I took over our preschool ministry area and immediately I inherited 30 open spots. Every week I had to find subs, and it took many months to recruit the 30 volunteers to fill that spot. And I remember when we finally filled all 30 spots, and I remember sending an email out to all of our volunteers saying, we did it. We finally have a full roster. And then that next Sunday we came in and we had multiple call outs. Maybe one no-show. I hate no-shows. That's not a good thing. If you got a lot of no-shows, that's a problem. You need to lean into that. People, you should trust people and they should trust you enough to let you know that they're not going to be there. But we had enough people that didn't show up that all of a sudden all the leaders look around and say, I thought we had a full roster. We did, but we had people call out. It happens every week. And when that happens, we find ourselves scrambling again, just like we did when we didn't have a full roster. See, a full roster doesn't mean full coverage. What do we need? We need subs. Now, there's a couple different approaches to this. So, like some leaders take the approach of like, well, I'm just going to overstaff. Like I only need 3 good leaders to oversee this 3rd grade boys small group, but I'm going to recruit a 4th just in case. So that way we got covered. So one of them can be out or 2 of them can be out and we're still covered. We still got this covered. And I'm not going to say that's a bad strategy. And it could be that you've got a group of people, like maybe you got 2 adults and 2 teenagers, and it's a great way of mentoring teenagers. Like, so I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, but I'm just not a fan of overstaffing as an insurance plan. Like, I'm going to overstaff this because also sometimes when you overstaff, there are volunteers that feel unneeded. Like you don't need. There's only 9 kids, but you've got 4 leaders here. It feels like overkill. And so you might have like a really qualified leader who now feels underutilized and then they don't stick around. So I don't feel like overstaffing is usually the way to go. It feels inefficient and it creates some frustrations for people who really want to do meaningful work. I think the better option is building a bench, okay? Staff your roles intentionally. Maybe it's 3 volunteers per room, and that's the goal. But you're going to build a separate, healthy subsystem where you can sub in people when needed and where needed. Okay? Let your starters start and let your subs sub. That's my preference, and that's what I would encourage you to do. So how many subs do you need? You know what? Again, because we are so oftentimes reactive to this sub issue, We don't know. Like we've got subs, we don't know where we got them. We slowly built it out of time, maybe kind of accidentally. The people who said they could only serve every now and again, and every week it's a scramble. People let us know they can't be there on Saturdays and Fridays. They text us and say, "Oh my gosh, I got the fever. My kid's sick, and I'm not going to be there." And so I think that there's a predictable nature to how many people call out each week. And you know it's really easy to figure it out? You can open up your schedule, whether it's printed or it's Planning Center online or your whatever database you use for check-in. You can go back and look and see that on, Monday or Tuesday you created a schedule and then people started confirming or declining, and you can go and look at all those declines. Now sometimes it gets messy because you asked a sub and then that sub declined. So you need a way to look at, like, here's how many people were actually scheduled and how many declined from the beginning of the week till excuse me, until the weekend. Go back 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and I think you're going to find a fairly predictable number of call outs every month. I would say by nature, a good rule is 10%. Okay, 10% of your volunteers are not going to be able to make it. You're going to schedule 10% of your volunteers. You're going to schedule your volunteers, and 10% of them are going to opt out. I can't be there. I'm out of town. I already blacked out those dates. So 10%. So here's the funny part. You should be able to know how many volunteers are going to be out. And so you could predict that and then begin to schedule those up. So let's just look at some simple math. Let's use a simple, easy whole number, and we're going to say, let's say you've got 50 volunteers that you need between, like, your two services. You need 30 at one and 20 at the other, and you've got a total of 50 volunteers that you try to schedule every week. And maybe you don't even have that many volunteers, so you're already using some subs. But going into the weekend, you scheduled 50 people. If 10% is your number, then that means this upcoming weekend, more than likely, 5 of your volunteers are going to call out. Some of them will wait till Friday and Saturday to do it because they get sick or they forgot about something. Others might be preemptive early in the week and they're going to call out. But if 10% is your average, then, and again, it's an average. There might be some weeks where it's 15% or 20%, and other weeks where it's 3%. But find out what your average is, and then start scheduling subs. You can start to do this. Now, this is the challenge that we run into. Oftentimes, as kids ministry leaders, we tend to just live in this reactive world. We've got a roster, we schedule our volunteers, and it's almost comical how panicked we are on Fridays and Saturdays when people start calling out. And we had plans for a quiet weekend at home. We had plans for a date with our spouse. We had plans to go do something with our kids. And all of a sudden, we get sucked back into work, and we're trying to call subs and figure out how to handle all these last minute things. And it's ironic because here's what we oftentimes do. I see this all the time. Kidmin leaders, maybe you got a big vacation coming up. You're going to be gone. You're going to be on a cruise ship. You don't even have internet or cell service, and you're going to be gone. And you've asked somebody to fill in for you. And so because you're going to ask them again in the future, you want to set them up for success. So here's what you do. You work on your schedule 2 weeks out, so that way it's all covered. And then you're going to actually call in extra reserves. You're going to call in extra subs. Like, hey, I don't even know if I'm going to need you or not, but would you be willing to show up and come talk to so-and-so, and they're going to plug you in where they need you. Like, we do this all the time when we go on vacation. Maybe you're going on a mission trip and you pre-work that. But then on the regular Sundays, when you're there, we don't do that. Like, we let the tyranny of the urgent, the call outs on Fridays and Saturdays, freak us out and disrupt our weekend. Common sense and logic says 5%, or 10% of my volunteers are going to call out. What if I actually pre-planned this? What if every Thursday at the end of the day, I'm assuming maybe you have Friday and Saturday off before your Sunday service. What if when you closed your computer on Thursday, you actually recruited the 5 or 6 or 7 subs that you need, even though you don't even know if you really need them because people haven't called out yet, but they're scheduled, they're ready to go. You close your laptop and you hide your phone for the weekend. And when you wake up on Sunday morning, you look and see who called out. And then when you come in on Sunday, you just plug in those pre-recruited subs to the spots. What if that was what the weekends look like for us? See, that's an intentional strategy for subs that could give you your weekends back. You already know that people are going to call out. Scrambling last minute, it's a leadership choice, not a necessity. Okay. Scrambling is a leadership choice, not a necessity. So, how do we do this practically? Okay. Start with the people you already know. Okay. You've got volunteers that over the last 3 to 4 months that have stepped out for one reason or another. Maybe somebody had a baby. Maybe somebody was having a very busy season in work. Maybe somebody was having a small crisis in their family. Maybe some people were just taking a break. Over the last 4 to 6 months, who were volunteers, committed volunteers that were serving and served for a year or more that you might be able to reach out to and maybe first ask, would you be willing to come back regularly? Like, is now the time? And if no, pivot and say, okay, so because you're already trained, you're already background checked, you're already an expert in our area, would you be willing to come back just in a sub capacity, like once a month? Would you be willing to cover some of my key volunteers when they're on vacation, when they're sick, whenever those things are? You'd be surprised how many of those people say, you know what, I can do that. I can't come back fully yet, but I'd be willing. Yeah, you can put me on the schedule once a month, or you can call me once a month and let me know where you need me. See, we need to connect our subs or our potential subs to a greater vision of what we're asking them to do. We have amazing volunteers who show up week after week after week after week, and they're making such an important difference. And we want to support this great work. We want to help serve them. And so, would you be willing to be one of those people who helps serve and support these volunteers that are serving your kids, that are investing in your kids? And so, invest in them, create a visionary ask, and you'd be surprised at how many people are going to say, yeah, put me in. I can do once a month. Call me when you need me, and I'm ready to go. And past volunteers are great because, again, they're already trained, they're already background checked, they're already screened, they're ready to go. Also, we talked about this earlier, you can recruit from the know. When you're doing some volunteer recruiting and you ask somebody to serve and they said no, don't end the conversation, but reframe the conversation right there. Hey, would you be willing? Maybe, okay, you can't do weekly. Totally get that. But would you be willing to be one of our subs? Would you be willing to be on our flex team? Again, you'll be shocked how many people will turn that no into a, yeah, I could do that. Like, that would be something I could possibly do. So here's the deal. If I were recruiting, and again, let's use these whole numbers, I need 50 volunteers on any given week. And I've gone back and I've seen that statistically about 10% of volunteers call out. That means every single week I probably need to plan for 5 subs who are going to step in. Okay, there's typically 4 weekends in a month. And so 5 subs every week in a month, it's about 20 volunteers. 20 every other week volunteers. Listen, that's not hard to find. That's not hard to find. And what you might do is you might schedule, like, okay, these 5 subs, they're going to be, I'm going to go ahead and ask them, hey, every month, I'm just going to go ahead and schedule you. Can I schedule you for the first Sunday of the month? I don't know where we're going to put you yet. We're going to have, X number of volunteers that are going to call out. And by Wednesday or Thursday, most of you, I'll be able to place like, hey, you're going to be in preschool. Hey, you're going to be in second grade. Some of you, it might be, I'm going to text you on Sunday morning and say, hey, go ahead and show up in preschool. Go ahead and show up in preteen. And we're going to do that. But you could go ahead and schedule your subs just like you schedule all your other volunteers, just so it's already there. Some people are going to be those volunteers. You're going to have them on a slightly different sub list where they're like, call me when you need me. Like, I don't want to be on a schedule. Just call me when you need me. Okay, that's great. We always need those people too. It might be one of those weeks where second week it's like, hey, would you be willing to sub? I've got somebody just called out. And again, it doesn't have to be a last minute thing. It could still be on a Monday. You already know that somebody blacked out their dates. So you're going to go ahead and call that sub that said, hey, just call me when you need me. Start with them and work through those volunteers as well. Both these volunteers, these subs are important. Both of them are valuable. The ones that are, hey, just call me when you need me, or go ahead and put me on once a month. But you might want to call these volunteers. You may not want to call them subs. Maybe you want to call them your flex team. You call them your bench team. You call them the bench, and so you can do this now. Building a healthy sub team is something you can do right alongside your normal recruiting strategy. So as you're recruiting your volunteers and people say no, move them to the sub team. Get them to say yes to subs. Or maybe you got a volunteer that's feeling a little bit burned out. They need to take a break. Hey, instead of completely disengaging from kids, what if you jumped on our sub team and just served once a month? Or you served when I call you, like when on occasion, and I ask you to jump in and serve somewhere. This helps reduce burnout, having a healthy bench who can step in and serve people. You want your volunteers to be able to take off without feeling guilty, that they take off to maintain their own mental health and physical health and emotional health. And it gives them an opportunity to love what they do for a really long time. And it creates margin for growth. As you build a healthy sub team, many of those people from your sub team, they're going to come back and they're going to become starters again. So don't forget, this is such an important strategy that oftentimes get overlooked. We have a sub list, but we don't treat that sub list with the care that it deserves or the intentionality that it deserves. So remember, you're playing the long game. Yes, you're trying to fill your rosters. You're trying to build a strong rosters, but we got to remember the starters miss games. Injuries happen, life happens, things happen, and healthy teams, healthy ministries plan for starters missing games. So stop just reacting every weekend. Build your bench. Start looking for great people who are in a season of life that they're not going to be regular, committed volunteer. Every healthy ministry pays attention to their bench. So I hope that was helpful. I hope it was a creative new look at something so important. The health and the long-term success of your volunteer teams relies on healthy subs and a deep volunteer bench. So good luck as you approach this tweak to your volunteer ask and to onboarding maybe previous volunteers into this healthy volunteer sub, flex team, bench team, and build a greater volunteer team.